Welcome back. Before you even get started on preparing for the nitty-gritty details, you need to take a huge 10,000-foot view of your case and think about the big picture. Julie, how do you do that?
One thing that you always need to remember is your judge. You go into the courtroom and you're thinking it's about your client or it's about the argument you're going to make, but it's not. It's about what impression are you going to make on this judge who has hundreds of cases. This is the time that the judge has set aside for you. And how are you going to effectively tell your story so that the judge remembers it and ultimately rules in your favor? And one thing that's really important with that is to make sure you don't do what I call talking inside baseball. You're going to need to prep your witnesses to not say it, them, they, she, he, when, it's too vague. And the judge is going to be like, who's she? Who's they? You really need to remember that you're talking to somebody who knows nothing about your case. I know you've done your pretrial statement. I know that there is some background, thank goodness. But when you walk into the trial, you're making a record. And so you're really going in there and telling your story. And so it's really important to keep that in mind. You don't just want to jump into your questions with, okay, what happened last week? Oh, so you got married when and you have how many kids? Like you need to lay down the facts of the story. So always keep that in mind. Also, you need to tell a clear and compelling story. There's hundreds of ways to tell a story. What elements, what facts do you want to highlight? Who is going to bring out those points? What exhibits? Like you really need to sit down and think this through before you just walk into the courtroom. Because if you don't know what your story is, and if you don't have a clear way of telling it, your judge isn't going to know what your case is about. Any
I'm really
thoughts on
glad
that?
absolutely. I'm really glad that you mentioned that. I remember in one of my first trials, I was going back and forth with a witness and the judge stopped me and said, counsel, I know you two know what you're talking about, but I have no idea what you're talking about. So this happens to everyone, which is why one of the most important things that you can do is practice, but you can be prepared. People want to talk about what's important to them. But going back to what you said, you have to think about what does your judge need to know? And because you're so time constricted in family law, it can be very tempting to rush through or skip over very important foundational elements. So, those are just some of the thoughts that I had about what you said. Any other big picture concepts people need to keep in mind?
Think of your case by issue. What are the contested issues in your case? If you have a divorce, property division, and break it down. What are the contested issues within property division? Is spousal maintenance an issue? Legal decision making, parenting time, child support. You really need to get clear and craft your case around each issue. Otherwise, you are lost in a sea of facts, in a sea of arguments, and you're all over the place. And again, the judge is lost too, because if you aren't coming in, okay, judge, now we're going to talk about property. Da, 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 da. All right, now we're going to talk about spousal maintenance. Da, 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 da. Then the judge isn't going to know necessarily what evidence goes where, and the judge may go in a whole different direction than what you're wanting. So keep in mind that this takes a lot of practice. I don't want you to beat yourself up and be like, wow, I spent hours and hours preparing for this. Yeah, I remember spending days going home at night, looking in the mirror, practicing my direct examination, practicing my closing argument. Do I do that 15 plus years later? No, now I don't need to do it. But did I do it for years? I did. And so understand this takes time and don't feel like you aren't getting it because it's taking a lot of time, because it's called the practice of law for a reason. And these skills you will learn and refine with time and you will get better. And also, as you're approaching each case, the more you can start to put together checklists for yourself or sets of questions. Oh, this is a great set of questions on a parenting time dispute. Of course, you need to apply it to that case, but it's nice to already have a set template. So, as you're going through this, those of you who aren't representing yourself, who aren't going to be doing this over and over again, but those who are going to be representing others, really look at this. How can I build a wealth of knowledge around these skills so I'm not, reinventing the wheel every single time I have a hearing set? Um, so those are my thoughts on the big picture issues. Understand this is difficult work. It's not, you see on TV just little snippets of, oh, they're in their office preparing, and the next thing you know, they're in court and they're nailing a cross examination. And it makes it look so easy. And there are some lawyers that go in and they do it on the fly. And that is actually a technique that that I was taught in trial advocacy. It is one way that you can do it, but I don't recommend it when you're getting started because it's just going to make it more difficult. But again, you have that ability to add in questions on the fly, to go with the flow, to listen to the witness and revise your questions on the spot based on the evidence that is coming out. Um, as you progress, you will get to the point where every single question you ask will have meaning. When you start, it's not that simple. You might have some questions that end up being not that great, but as you refine your skills, you're going to see, wow, I have limited time. Every single question I ask is key. What am I going to ask next? And that's going to be something that will make you stand out to the judge. When you're not wasting time and you're coming in with good questions from the start and you're prepared, the judge is going to be impressed whether or not they rule in your favor.
Thank you so much, Julie. And up next, we will talk about creating your case theme and theory.